Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. You know, I realized I forgot to replace the graphic over my shoulder. I just realized that as I was coming on the air. So let me get the new picture up there. There, that's better. Fixed it. Hello, everybody. We are going to bring you some live coverage tonight. Quick live update, late night live update. Why? Because multiple reports say that President Trump could deploy National Guard troops to Washington, D.C., and he could announce it at his press conference coming up in about 10 hours. President Trump is going to do a press conference at 10 a.m. about crime and beautification in D.C., and multiple reports tonight say that he very well could. Some reports say he will announce some sort of deployment of National Guard troops to the District of Columbia, presumably to fight crime. So we are, hold on a second here, we're going to bring you an update here, take some comments on the air, and let you know the latest. We'll certainly be covering the press conference, which is going to be at 10 a.m. Okay, so we'll be covering that for you. But wanted to give you an update tonight because I've been hearing these reports. You start hearing enough of these things and you think like, well, it kind of sounds like it's going to happen. Hey, thanks to our moderators. Robert's Mayqueen is moderating right now over there on YouTube. Thank you so much. And also thank you to our Twitch moderators. 13 Alamo, DeBears, Idaho Star, Matthew Kohai 3, Papa Bear, and Surly Dev. Thanks to our Facebook moderators. Kay Lowry Body's here right now. Valerie Gail Griffin, thank you so much. Margaret Riley, thanks for moderating. Also Linda Belk, Larry, and Misha on X. And a big thanks to Brian Beelman. Thanks so much, Brian, for the gift memberships. That's so nice of you. Also thank you to Matthew Bradford, Curious George, Mikhail, Inhalation Aerosols, and Anak Spectre for your support of the channel. Thank you. And also CC143 over there on Twitch and Dark Crypto 800. Thank you. And Arizona Toaster for subscribing. Okay, so look, check it out. Here's one of these reports. U.S. military preparing for National Guard activation in Washington, D.C., officials say. Reuters. The U.S. military is preparing for the activation of hundreds of National Guard troops to Washington, D.C., two U.S. officials told Reuters on Sunday. The officials, who were speaking on the condition of anonymity, said a final decision was still to be made by U.S. President Trump, but the troops were prepared to deploy. One of the officials said it was unclear what exactly the troops would do, but could take part in efforts to protect federal agents or even carry out administrative tasks to free up law enforcement officials. That came out tonight from Reuters. Oh, thank you, Enoch Spectre. That's very kind of you. Enoch Spectre over there on YouTube. Thanks so much. President Trump has been talking a lot lately about how bad he believes crime is in D.C. Now, I believe violent crime is down in the past year in D.C., but we'll talk about that in a second. But you can see the sources that Reuters talked to said, two U.S. officials told Reuters the military is preparing for the activation of hundreds of National Guard troops to D.C., and the decision is still to be made by President Trump, but troops were prepared to deploy. Okay, so that's one report there. That's one report there. The Washington Post says a decision on calling up the National Guard could come as soon as Monday when Trump plans a news conference at the White House on crime in D.C. Also, let me tell you about a couple other reports I have seen. Lorenzo Hall, who is a news anchor at WUSA 9 in Washington, D.C., I believe that is. Yes. Lorenzo Hall from WUSA 9 reported tonight that he said sources tell him that district leaders strongly believe President Trump will deploy the National Guard in D.C., but he said there are no signs right now troops are being activated. But city leaders are preparing for that possibility tonight. ABC News tonight is reporting the U.S. military is preparing for possible activation of National Guard in D.C. That's according to ABC News tonight. The U.S. military, they say, is preparing for the possible activation of a portion of the D.C. National Guard to Washington, D.C. They say it's not clear how many would be activated. They say a decision has not yet been made. They say there are 2,700 personnel in the D.C. National Guard. They say that it is expected that if they are deployed, that would be to support local authorities. One thing that ABC News points out is that unlike the other National Guards, the D.C. National Guard is not under the control of the governor. It's also not under the control of the mayor. The D.C. National Guard is under control of the president. Okay? Another report I saw was from David Kaplan with Fox 5 DC. And David said that one source told him is that the National Guard will be utilized. And he said, according to David Kaplan of Fox DC, according to him, DC officials are in the dark about what President Trump will say. But he says a source tells him that the National Guard will be part of the announcement during the 10 a.m. press conference. There was another report I saw, another local report. Let me find this one. Where was that? Oh, WUSA, which is WUSA is I just saw this right now. WUSA, Trump expected to deploy the National Guard in D.C. to combat crime. So, let me read you this. I just saw this right now. WUSA says, according to multiple sources in Mayor Bowser's camp and within the Metropolitan Police Department, they are saying President Trump will definitely deploy the National Guard throughout the district. They are saying the announcement is expected to happen during Trump's news conference on Monday. That's from WUSA, CBS, I think it is, DC. WUSA news station in DC. I'm going to read that again. So again, tonight, WUSA, Washington, D.C. says, According to multiple sources in Mayor Bowser's camp and within the Metropolitan Police Department, they are saying President Trump will definitely deploy the National Guard throughout the district. They're saying the announcement's expected to happen during Trump's news conference Monday at 10 a.m. Trump for months has threatened to have the federal government take over the governance of D.C. So, that's what WUSA is reporting. So you get a sense of some of the reporting that's floating around tonight. Let me take some comments from you guys on this. Hang on, one moment. Okay. Shane Fage says it's literally martial law. Well, no, the military is not taking over law enforcement. That would be martial law, where the military takes over running the society, I believe that is. So it's not. I mean, it's a role for the military in law enforcement. Wikipedia, martial law is the replacement of civilian government by military rule and the suspension of civilian legal processes for military powers. So that's not, nobody's saying that's going to happen, at least right anytime soon. What neighborhood? Said one of our viewers. Well, the report from WUSA said throughout the district, but I don't have specifics on that. Juan Ajido says people voted for all this drama. Mallory says I'm scared. Inhalation aerosol says for what justifiable reason? Well, we'll talk about this, but he's been saying he wants to take strong action to reduce crime in D.C. By the way, thank you to SVJness. Thank you for your support. And also HLVE. HLVE says, crime is down in D.C. This is scary and a power grab. Thank you, the Vladinator, who says, why not hire more police if it's about fighting crime? Thank you, inhalation aerosols, by the way, and turned off. Thank you. JD63. Les Paul. Les Paul says, another distraction from something else? Les Paul 85. Thank you, Kiwi and Curious George. Let me show you. Let's take a look at some of the things President Trump has been saying on his social media leading up to this press conference. By the way, thanks Tatsiki on Twitch. I appreciate it. Dark Crypto 800. Stunned in the North. Thank you. JAD2796. CC143. Trav Rake. Thank you. Shaggy. Thank you. Hold on a second here. Let me again just tell you one of these reports. WUSA, which is CBS Washington, D.C. affiliate, says, they say, According to multiple sources in Mayor Bowser's camp and within the Metropolitan Police Department, they are saying President Trump will definitely deploy the National Guard throughout the district. They are saying the announcement is expected to happen during Trump's news conference on Monday. And Reuters says U.S. military preparing for National Guard activation in Washington, D.C. The troops are prepared to deploy. A final decision has still been made by President Trump. Okay, so let's look a little bit at what President Trump, some of the things he has been saying on his social media, on his Truth Social. So here's one thing he said. He posted pictures of homeless people in tents on his Truth Social, President Trump. And next to the people of homeless people in tents, I guess in D.C., he posted this. He said, we're having a news conference tomorrow in the White House. I'm going to make our Capitol safer and more beautiful than it ever was before. The homeless have to move out immediately. We will give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol. The criminals, you don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong. It's all going to happen very fast, just like the border. We went from millions pouring into zero in the last few months. This will be easier. Be prepared. There will be no Mr. Nice Guy. We want our Capitol back. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So he said that this morning. Sunday morning he posted that. And he also posted Sunday this. Also Sunday morning. Was it Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon? Sunday afternoon. He said, oops. He said, the press conference on crime and beautification will be held Monday at 10 a.m. in the press briefing room. And it will not only involve ending the crime, murder, and death in our nation's capital, but will also be about cleanliness and the general physical renovation and condition of our once beautiful and well-maintained capital. We are not going to allow people to spend $3.1 billion on fixing up a billion like the Federal Reserve. This is referring to that years-long, I believe it is, renovation project at the Federal Reserve that he has been criticizing Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, about. Anyways, he says, we are not going to allow people to spend $3.1 billion on fixing up a building like the Federal Reserve, which could have been done, he claims, in a far more elegant and time-sensitive manner for $50 to $100 million. The renovation would have actually been better and we would have saved $3 billion. Traffic jams and never-ending construction. The mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, is a good person who has tried, but she has been given many chances, and the crime numbers get worse, he claims, and the city only gets dirtier and less attractive. The American public is not going to put up with it any longer. Just like I took care of the border, where you had zero illegals coming across last month, from millions the year before, I will take care of our cherished capital, and we will make it truly great again. Before the tense squalor, filth, and crime, it was the most beautiful capital in the world. It will soon be that again. Thank you for your attention to this matter. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Regarding the crime rate in D.C., I have a couple articles about that. Just to clarify. Hold on a second here. WJLA, which is in Washington, D.C., had an article a month ago which said DC crime saw a 7% decrease in the first half of 2025 from last year. And WJLA also said in the first half of the year, 2025, there was a continued downward trend from crime highs in 2023. They said the Metropolitan Police Department said in the first half of the year, violent crimes were down 25%. Total property crimes were down by 4%. There was a 2% increase in motor vehicle thefts in the first half of the year. A 12% decrease in burglaries in the first half of the year. Also, I'm trying to find. Let me see something here. There's another article I have here. I just pulled up about this. The Washington Post says violent crimes in D.C. have been on decline since 2023. I think they had something else about crime in an article today. I'll see if I can show it to you here. Hold on a second here. Yeah, so this is a Washington Post article from today. In D.C., violent crime is down 26% compared with this time in 2024. According to D.C. police data, homicides are down 12%. Now, of course, there's all kinds of crime. I'm just, pointing out a couple things. By the way, this is an interesting story that was run by the Washington Post tonight. FBI moves to dispatch 120 agents to D.C. streets as Trump vows crackdown on crime. The FBI has begun dispatching about 120 FBI agents in overnight shifts to help local law enforcement prevent carjackings and violent crime in Washington, according to two people familiar with the matter, as President Trump threatens a federal takeover of the nation's capital. So that's going on. All right, let me read some of your comments here. Char Star Wishes says DC doctored their crime statistics. I haven't heard any kind of what I would say well-sourced evidence about such evidence or a well-sourced report about that kind of thing. I won't keep it from you if I hear it from some sort of reliable source. Barry Blessed says the National Guard didn't sign up for this. This will only spread to a military state. Donnie Lusk thinks this isn't about crime, let's be honest. Sunday, sunny Florida says, we'll see what happens tomorrow. On the East Coast, it's actually today. It's later today where I am. Don Willie says, I can't wait for when it finally happens. Hey, thanks to Turned Off and Allison Hargroves. Allison said the DOJ posted on January 3rd about how DC crime was at a 30-year low. Is that true? Is that true? I haven't seen that. I'd have to go back and look. I'll post a link to an article from WJLA, which is a local ABC outlet, about crime in the first half of the year compared to last year. I just posted it. You can check that out if you want. Thank you, Allison. Thank you also, Milo, for your support. Milo says, our nation's capital must be kept in great shape. It makes sense to have this area safe and secure, drug-free. It has to be done. Perhaps some is up. Thanks, Ross and Found, by the way. And Ivan. Thank you, Ivan. And Jesus UCSB. Thank you. Sean's News says, could the deployment of the National Guard cause protests? I was wondering about that. Will people protest if there are National Guard troops on the street in D.C.? I mean, there were protests in L.A., but when the National Guard got deployed there, but people were already protesting about the ICE raids. They weren't protesting just about the National Guard being there. So I don't know if we'll see any protests. It's an interesting question. Wendy Lee thinks maybe the National Guard is moving in overnight. She saw a plane on flight radar. You know, no one I follow or no reporting I've seen has suggested that they are hearing anything about that. So if I hear it from, you know, one of these sources that I think really closely follows the flight radar stuff, and there's a bunch of people I follow. I mean, there's all kinds of planes that fly on flight radar, and you know, sometimes they're just planes that always fly in a certain place. But I haven't heard, and the people I know who would follow that really closely, nobody that I've seen has posted anything. They think that anything is up with that. I'm not saying it's definitely not happening, but I haven't heard from any kind of reliable sourcing that there's a movement underway. Also, I don't know that they would need to fly them in, because I mean, aren't they just local? If they're DC National Guard, couldn't they just drive in? I don't know this for a fact. I'm just wondering. But thank you, Wendy Lee, for writing in. Alex Malarkey says, I support the military, but in DC it feels like too much. Just Data mentions, I'm not a legal expert, but Just Data, our viewer, mentioned the Posse Comitatus Act, which limits the powers of federal government to use federal military personnel to enforce domestic policies within the U.S. So I don't know. The president does control, from my understanding, the National Guard in D.C. I believe he has to do something like declare there's some sort of emergency going on legally. I do not know the legal, the law behind presidential use of National Guard forces, of D.C. National Guard in D.C. It's a good question. Again, I'm not positive about that. I thought I had read a story about that today, but I don't want to start. I'm not going to start weighing in on these legal issues. But would it in any way violate the Posse Comitatus Act? I do not know. Thanks, Just Data, for writing in. All right, let me go over some of the reports that are coming out tonight about this. Okay, this press release. Allison Hargrove sent me a press release from January 3rd from the U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Columbia. Allison sent this in. It's a press release that says total violent crime for 2024 in D.C. was down 35% from 2023 and was the lowest it had been in over 30 years. This is between 2024 and 2023. And homicides were down 32%, robberies 39%, and armed carjackings down 53%. Anyways, I'll post a link to that. That's a press release from January. Thank you, Allison, for sending that in. The Washington Post has an update tonight on this. They say FBI dispatching agents to D.C. streets as Trump weighs calling National Guard. So let me just read you what the Washington Post is reporting tonight. The FBI has begun dispatching agents in overnight shifts to help local law enforcement prevent carjackings and violent crime in Washington, according to two people familiar with the matter, as President Trump threatens a federal takeover of the nation's capital and considers calling up the National Guard. A decision on calling up the Guard could come as soon as Monday, when President Trump plans a news conference at the White House on crime in D.C. Trump on Sunday compared forthcoming action against D.C. crime to his administration's aggressive crackdown against illegal immigration at the southern border, saying he plans to immediately clear out the city's homeless population and take swift action against crime. Be prepared, there will be no Mr. Nice Guy. We want our capital back, he wrote on Truth Social. A White House official said in a statement that we won't get ahead of the president on any potential announcements, but the president has been clear that all options are on the table when it comes to making D.C. safe again. A spokesperson for D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser's office said the White House had not briefed the Bowser administration on any plans to deploy the National Guard to the city. Spokespeople for the Pentagon did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The Washington Post also says because D.C. is not a state, the federal government has unique authority to exert control over city affairs, even amid objections from the residents and locally elected government. They also say, though, a federal takeover of the D.C. police force would be an extraordinary assertion of power in a place where local leaders have few avenues to resist federal encroachment. So could we see something like that happen? The Post also says Trump has been ramping up his criticisms of the nation's capital in recent days. Last week, the president posted on social media the photo of a former U.S. DOJ service staffer who was injured in an attempted carjacking. Now, what's going to happen with this homeless thing, too? Remember, President Trump said, this is what he said this morning. He said, oh, by the way, I want to show you this as well. We didn't even talk about this post. This is from, he said 2 days ago. 2 days ago, he said, 2 days ago, on Monday, a press conference will be held at the White House, which will essentially stop violent crime in Washington, D.C. He says it has become one of the most dangerous cities anywhere in the world. It will soon be one of the safest. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President DJT. Yeah, this is the post about the homeless people. So what is he going to do with this? We're having a news conference tomorrow, he means Monday, in the White House. I'm going to make our capital safer and more beautiful than it ever was before. The homeless have to move out immediately. We will give you places to stay, but far from the capital. So is there going to be some kind of action where, like, vehicles ride around, like federal government vehicles, and just take homeless people off the streets and then transport them to places to stay far from the capital? I mean, because I assume the homeless people can't just get there themselves. How would you expect them to get there themselves far from the capital? He also says, the criminals, you don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong. It's all going to happen very fast, just like the border. We went from millions pouring into zero in the last few months. This will be easier. Be prepared. There will be no Mr. Nice Guy. We want our capital back. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So how's that going to work? I mean, he's saying it right here. He literally is saying that the homeless have to move out immediately. And we will give you places to stay, but far from the capital. So again, I don't know how they're expected to get there. And it sounds like this is not going to be up to them. Thrifty Treasure thinks it's going to happen. It's happening in the city where I live. People coming in fully armed, police coming in fully armed to tear down homeless encampments. Well, this would be more than tearing down homeless encampments. It would be forcibly resettling them somewhere else. Ernesto says, let's give the administration a chance to settle down. Cindy Albrecht says Trump is out of control. By the way, thank you so much, Rita. Rita says, are homeless reading his Truth Social? Thank you, Get the Let Out, our member. Inhalation Aerosols, who says they are deploying undesirables to camps. Obsidian Survival thinks it's legal for Obsidian Survival says the National Guard is not covered when under state authority Title 32. Governors can use them for law enforcement. I'm not going to get into a discussion about the legality of using National Guard for law enforcement. I just don't know. So, and maybe it's different because it's DC. Obsidian thinks it's legal. Again, I can't really intelligently comment on that because I'm not a legal expert. But thank you, Obsidian Survival. Thank you also, PZ Papa Zulu, who says There was a congressional aide recently killed and a congressman was carjacked. The young criminals are given light sentences need to change. I don't know about those specific reports. I'm not saying they're false. I'm just not familiar with all the different things that happen there. And also there's a question of, not just what happens there, but also whether what is happening is, more than average or more than it has been. Yeah, there was a congressional intern that was killed in D.C. in June, and police believe, I'm reading online, that he was the unintended victim. The shot when people were firing at each other. That's what I just read. Anyways, so which is super sad, but again, I don't know if that factored into what President Trump is planning on. Let me show you this here. To repeat, in case you haven't heard, multiple reports tonight say that President Trump could deploy the National Guard to D.C. When he gives his press conference today at 10 a.m., Monday at 10 a.m. Reuters says the U.S. military is preparing for the activation of hundreds of National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. Two U.S. officials told Reuters on Sunday. The officials said a final decision is still to be made by President Trump, but the troops were prepared to deploy. One of the officials said it was unclear what exactly the troops would do, but could take part in efforts to protect federal agents or even carry out administrative tasks to free up law enforcement officials. WUSA, which is a CBS news outlet in Washington, D.C., WUSA reports tonight saying, according to multiple sources in Mayor Bowser's camp and within the Metropolitan Police Department, they are saying President Donald Trump will definitely deploy the National Guard throughout the district. They are saying the announcement is expected to happen during Trump's news conference on Monday. WJLA reports that roughly 450 federal officers are expected to appear around D.C. late Sunday night into early morning as the Trump administration lauds its efforts to combat crime in the city, and also reports that the U.S. military is preparing a possible activation of the D.C. National Guard. Oh, did the White House post about this? I probably have this statement. Where is it here? Where? I don't know. Did I get that statement? I don't see it here. According to ABC, according to WJLA, the White House said nearly 20 agencies will deploy officers to carry out law enforcement duties alongside the D.C. police tonight. Let me show you this. Trump vows to evict homeless from Washington. Official says National Guard may be deployed. This is from Reuters. President Trump pledged today to evict homeless people from the nation's capital and jail criminals, despite Washington's mayor arguing there is no current spike in crime. While details of the plan were unclear, the administration is preparing to deploy hundreds of National Guard troops to Washington, a U.S. official told Reuters, a controversial tactic Trump used recently in Los Angeles to tackle immigration protests over the objections of local officials. Trump has not made a final decision, the official said, adding the number of troops in their role are still being determined. Unlike in California and every other state, where the governor typically decides when to activate Guard troops, although that didn't happen with the LA protests, the president directly controls the National Guard in Washington, D.C. Past instances of the Guard's deployment in the city include in response to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol by a mob of Trump supporters. President Trump said on his Truth Social, "The homeless have to move out immediately. We will give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol." The White House declined to explain what legal authority Trump would use to evict homeless people from Washington. Remember, he said far from the Capitol. So President Trump said he's going to take homeless people from Washington, D.C. and forcibly remove them from Washington, D.C. The White House declined to explain what legal authority Trump would use to evict people from Washington. The Republican president controls only federal land and buildings in the city. Trump plans to hold a press conference on Monday to stop violent crime in Washington, D.C. It was not clear whether he would announce more details of his homeless people eviction plan then. There are about 3,800 single persons experiencing homelessness on any given night in the city of about 700,000 people, says the Community Partnership Organization. Most such individuals are in emergency shelters or transitional housing rather than on the street, it says. A White House official said Friday more federal law enforcement officers were being deployed in the city following a violent attack on a young administration staffer that angered the president. How much does that play into this? There was an attack on I believe it was a Doge staffer, a young administration staffer. Alleged crimes investigated by federal agents on Friday night included multiple persons carrying a pistol without a license, motorists driving on suspended licenses, and a dirt bike riding, a White House official said on Sunday. The White House official said 450 federal law enforcement officers were deployed across the city on Saturday. The D.C. Police Department says violent crime was down 26% in D.C. in the first 7 months of 2025 compared with last year, while overall crime was down about 7%. The Democratic mayor of D.C. said Sunday the Capitol was not experiencing a crime spike. She said, "It is true that we had a terrible spike in crime in 2023, but this is not 2023. She said, "We have spent over the last 2 years driving down violent crime in this city, driving it down to a 30-year low." At the end of the article, it says the U.S. Congress has control of D.C.'s budget after the district was established in 1790, but resident voters elect a mayor and city council. At the very end of the bottom, which is off your screen right now, it says, for Trump to take over the city, it is likely that Congress would have to pass a law revoking the law that established local elected leadership. So there's the National Guard thing. All these reports that he's going to deploy the National Guard. Then there's this whole other question of his plan to evict all homeless people from D.C. Roger Shoemaker says, this is the most anti-human nonsense I've ever heard. Give Steve a Moment says, it's about time. Hope he goes to every city in the country and make good old USA great again. YouTubing with you says, let's hope everything is carried out in a humane way. Mukio says, what about our homeless veterans? Campapeleao says, I hope the homeless in D.C. can be helped and not just evicted out. Naomi Sims says, is this only in D.C.? Yeah, this is about D.C. JD63 says, it sounds like many people are fine creating a bigger problem somewhere else without actually caring about the homeless. Dale Smythe says it's a distraction from the Epstein list. Hey, by the way, thank you to our moderators. Ruth Krafasi is moderating our late night update stream. Thank you, Ruth. We will have live coverage of the 10 a.m. Eastern Time press conference from President Trump, where he may actually announce a National Guard deployment and or a homeless eviction detailed program. We will come on the year before 10 a.m. at some point to do a little pre-coverage, and then we'll have the live coverage at 10 a.m. of the press conference. So I hope you can join us then. Thanks also to our moderators on Twitch, DeBears, Idaho Star, Matthew Kohai 3, Sarah and Surly Dev. Over on Facebook, Kay Lowry, Body, Valerie, Gail Griffin, Margaret Riley, thanks for moderating, Linda Belk, Larry, and Misha on X. Thanks for moderating. LT says, this strikes me as creating a problem, not solving one. Thanks, by the way, to Aaron Van S. and LT for subscribing over there on Facebook, along with Robert Rial II and Kay and Margaret Riley. Did I thank Margaret for modding? Thank you. Thanks also Amy Cluck for the stars. I think I missed some stars. Amy Cluck, thanks for the Facebook stars. Margaret might have given stars too. Thank you, Margaret. And also thanks to, hold on a second, the Blighty UK. Thanks for watching on Twitch. And thanks to Ken Lance. Ken says the problem is some people want to live on the streets. Would be great to see those who want to be housed off the street. Thanks, Ken, for your support. Also, thank you to, hold on, Brian Beelman gave 50 people memberships. Hey, Brian, that's really kind of you. Thanks so much, Brian Beelman. Oh, I got frozen. I froze. How long have I been frozen for? Let me unfreeze myself. I got to unfreeze myself. I'm back. Now I'm back. Thank you, Leetweet, too. Make sure, by the way, you thank somebody who, if they give you a gift membership or a gift subscription. Thank you, Leetweet, who says, evict the homeless people to where? He says, I have a feeling this is the homegrowns. They usually have no ID or family, so it would be easy for them to get away with it. That's what Leetweet says. Thanks also. Hey, thanks, Brian Beelman. That's really kind of you, Brian. Thank you. Also, Muzi Shun 75 and PZ Papa Zulu. Thank you, PZ Papa Zulu. Thank you, Dennis Kennedy, and also CAC813 and Perry Stein. And Joe. Joe thinks D.C. is one of the most dangerous cities in the country. It is supposed to be federally controlled. Thank you, Bay Photo. Yeah, I talked about that press release earlier, Bay Photo. Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer, Rochelle, our member, Rita, our member. See if I have any more updates on this. Give me a moment here. Oh, there was another report about this. Hold on. There was another reporter who had mentioned the National Guard thing that I forgot to mention. A DC reporter, I think it was. Let's see here. Where is it? Larry Miller. Larry Miller, who is with WUSA, he says multiple sources confirm Trump plans to deploy the National Guard across D.C. He says D.C. leaders weighing next steps. As I mentioned, hold on a second here. News Nation's Kelly Meyer says the U.S. military is preparing for the possibility that President Trump will deploy hundreds of National Guard forces to help the federal effort to fight D.C. crime, a U.S. official tells me. She reports, News Nation's Kelly Meyer, that the expectation is if Trump is going to call up the National Guard, he will do it. He will announce it at his press conference on Monday. Thank you also, by the way, it's really kind of you, SV Janus. SV Janus thinks most running the country grew up with blood lead levels high enough to cause measurable cognitive damage. I can't speak to that. I know nothing about that. Thank you so much, SV Janus, for your support. I really appreciate your support. Thank you. Let's talk. Oh, here, let me show you this. Here's an update from AP. Look. Trump is promising new steps to tackle homelessness and crime in Washington. President Trump is promising new steps to tackle homelessness and crime in Washington, prompting the city's mayor to voice concerns about the potential use of the National Guard to patrol the streets in the nation's capital. As we mentioned, Trump's having a news conference at 10 a.m. He posted on social media today that the homeless have to move out immediately. He said, "We will give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol." Last week, Trump directed federal law enforcement agencies to increase their presence in Washington for 7 days, with the option to extend as needed. On Friday night, federal agencies, including the Secret Service, the FBI, and the U.S. Marshals Service, assigned more than 120 officers and agents to assist in Washington. Trump said last week he was considering ways for the federal government to seize control of Washington, asserting that crime was ridiculous and the city was unsafe after the recent assault of a high-profile member of DOJ, the Department of Government Efficiency. The moves Trump said he was considering included bringing in the D.C. National Guard. Mayor Bowser questioned the effectiveness of using the Guard to enforce city laws and said the federal government could be far more helpful by funding more prosecutors or filling the 15 vacancies on the D.C. Superior Court, some of which have been open for years. Bowser cannot activate the National Guard herself, but she can submit a request to the Pentagon. She said today, "I just think that's not the most efficient use of our Guard." But she did acknowledge it's the president's call how to deploy the Guard. She also noted that violent crime in Washington has decreased since a rise in 2023. Police statistics show homicides, robberies, and burglaries are all down this year when compared with this time in 2024. Overall, violent crime is down 26% compared with this time a year ago, says AP. President Trump offered no details in his Truth Social post this weekend about possible new actions to address crime levels that he argues are dangerous for citizens, tourists, and workers alike. The White House declined to offer additional details about the announcement coming up later today. The police department in the mayor's office did not respond to questions about what Trump might do next. The president criticized D.C. as full of tense, squalor, filth, and crime. And he seems to have been set off by the attack on Edward Korestein, among the most visible figures of the bureaucracy-cutting effort known as DOGE. Police arrested two 15-year-olds in the attempted carjacking and said they were looking for others. Trump said Wednesday, "This has to be the best-run place in the country, not the worst-run place in the country." Trump has repeatedly suggested that the rule of Washington could be returned to federal authorities. Doing so would require a repeal of the Home Rule Act of 1973 in Congress, a step Trump said lawyers are examining. It could face steep pushback. Another article said Congress would have to repeal it. Maybe the White House is considering just declaring it themselves. I don't know. Mayor Bowser acknowledged that the law allows Trump, the president, to take more control over the city's police, but only if certain conditions are met. She said none of those conditions exist in our city right now. We are not experiencing a spike in crime. In fact, we're watching our crime numbers go down. What is President Trump going to do? What's he going to announce? We'll have to see. In like less than 9 hours. I'm going to have to make sure I get some sleep before the press conference. Fire Eater says, don't let this distract you from the fact that the Epstein files are being blocked from release. Copland says, how is Trump allowed to do this? He said for years Nancy Pelosi's position was in charge of the National Guard. Here's this headline from Reuters. U.S. military preparing for National Guard activation in Washington, D.C., officials say. Steve Johnson thinks he's afraid of the pending protest building across the nation. This is a preemptive move. He's testing the waters. Hey, thanks so much to Joe. Joe says bring back psychiatric hospitals and asylums. Thanks to the Vladinator, who says, interesting how a U.S. president wants to punish U.S. citizens for being homeless. Fly them to Australia. We will give them safety and care. Thanks to Vladinator. Thanks to Sean T. and Martyr Loser King. Inhalation Aerosol says it's morally, legally, and ethically wrong to deport homeless people. He's not talking about shipping them out of the country, but he is talking about forcibly removing them from D.C., it sounds like. Thank you, Larry DM, who believes cities dump them in other homeless people in other cities, and every city in the country does it. That's what Larry DM, our viewer, says. Oh, thanks to our viewer Chambeges sent me it's a thread from the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless, which is it looks like a group that gives legal assistance to homeless people. I believe that's what it is. I'm just looking at their website, the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless. It's a legal services organization, they say, that specializes in the unique legal needs of people experiencing homelessness. Looks like they help homeless people with legal services. Looks like a main thing they do. Maybe they do other stuff too. Anyways, you can look them up. Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless. They posted a thread where they said today, we are watching closely as the federal government broadcasts various threats to folks without homes in D.C. They say the federal government does not have the legal authority to disappear large groups of people because they cannot afford housing or are visibly homeless. They also say the federal government does not have the authority to force people to move out of the state or city they live in. They also say no one can be banished from a jurisdiction, and they say we will not stand by if the federal government attempts to abuse its power against our community in this way. So anyways, if you want to, I'll post a link to the thread if you want to read it. So that's what they say. They say that the federal government does not have the legal authority to force people to move out of D.C. Homeless or not. That's what they say. Tony Del Monte writes in and says, what happened to the days when we had moderates and not extremists far left and far right? That's why politics makes me so sick. And I will never vote again until they care more about the people than themselves. Thank you, Tony, for writing it. All right, we'll give a couple more reports here. I honestly, what's going to happen? What's he going to announce in this press conference? I don't know. I have no idea. But he says it's going to be about crime and beautification in D.C. That's what he says. Yes, I will be covering the press conference at 10 a.m. NBC4 Washington says President Trump is considering deploying up to 1,000 National Guard troops to D.C. Okay, this is from NBC4 Washington. Let me read you this from NBC4 Washington. You ready? Here it is. NBC4 Washington says, this is what they say. President Trump is considering deploying up to 1,000 National Guard troops to D.C. and could make the announcement as early as Monday, one defense official and two U.S. officials confirmed on Sunday night. They say the decision is not final. Some reports say that the carjacking incident was really important for him. Here, so I just want to mention that carjacking thing that happened. So this story is from August 5th, from 6 days ago. Trump threatens federal takeover of D.C. after attack on former DOJ worker. That was the Elon Musk-led DOJ department in the Trump administration, formerly Elon Musk-led. Two 15-year-olds have been arrested in Washington in connection with the attempted carjacking and beating of one of the most prominent members of the Department of Government Efficiency, renewing calls from President Trump for the federal government to seize control of the nation's capital. The victim, Edward Korestein, nicknamed, I'm not making this up, Big Balls, was among the most visible figures of Trump's DOJ, which was tasked with slashing federal bureaucracy. Korestein was assaulted around 3 a.m. last Sunday in the city's Logan Circle neighborhood by a group of teenagers attempting to carjack him and a woman whom police identified as his significant other, according to authorities. The police said the group approached the couple's car and made a comment about taking it. Korestein pushed the woman into the vehicle for safety and turned to confront the group. At least several of the teens then attacked him, police said, until officers patrolling nearby intervened. As officers moved toward the group, the teens fled on foot. Two 15-year-olds from Maryland were arrested on charges of unarmed carjacking, police said. The attack gave new fuel to long-standing Republican efforts to challenge Washington's autonomy, with Trump threatening to bypass local authority and impose direct federal control over the city. This was about a week ago. In a social media post on Tuesday of last week, the president described crime in Washington as out of control. Was this Tuesday of last week? I think it was. He said, if D.C. doesn't get its act together and quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run this city how it should be run and put criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. The District of Columbia, says AP, has long served as a symbolic battleground in debates over crime and governance, and its lack of statehood has made it uniquely vulnerable to federal intervention. Republican leaders have frequently seized on episodes of violence to portray the city as a case study of violence in cities run by Democratic mayors, even as city officials note that violent crime overall is down more than 25% from the same period last year. Still, local officials have acknowledged in recent years that youth crime, particularly carjackings, remains a serious concern. A significant portion of carjacking arrests in Washington involve juveniles. Anyway, so I don't know how big this carjacking around a week ago plays into this announcement that President Trump made that he's having a press conference today and is planning on announcing some big measures. Cosmic Country Girl says crime is nationwide. Let's see here. But again, so NBC Washington is reporting that President Trump is considering deploying up to 1,000 National Guard troops to D.C. And could they announce this as early as Monday? As I mentioned, WUSA, the CBS affiliate in D.C., is saying, according to multiple sources, in Mayor Bowser's camp and within the Metropolitan Police Department, they are saying President Trump will definitely deploy the National Guard throughout the district, and the announcement is expected to happen during his press conference Monday. One Speed says, make D.C. great again. Unconditional Surrender, our viewer says, cleaning up the Capitol is step 0 to anything. Not sure why so many disagree for this great novel act. Mommy Dearest says, Epstein distraction. Sharkingly says, is he going to have National Guards patrolling the streets 24/7 in armored vehicles or something? Billy Joe says, in that carjacking, police intervened without being called, but yeah, National Guard needed. What a joke! Hey, thank you, Jet Soul. Thank you, Jet Soul. I appreciate your support. And thanks for your suggestion, Jet Soul. All right, so when this press conference happens today, 10 a.m., we'll have to see. Is he going to call the National Guard? Is he going to deploy the National Guard to D.C.? Many sources suggest it's going to happen, but we don't know. Whole other question, what's he going to do about the homeless people? Because he has said he's going to do something which sounds pretty bold. He has said they have to leave immediately. And they're going to go somewhere else, far away. That's what he said. I'm not making this up. It's what he said. It's his words. We're having a news conference in the White House tomorrow. I'm going to make our Capitol safer and more beautiful than ever it was before. The homeless have to move out immediately. We will give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol. So that says that that means that they are banning these homeless people, that they're forcing them to leave D.C. Is that legal? How is he planning on doing this? Will there be details in the press conference? What else will be announced at this press conference? Kolohi says he's going to evict them. Mitch thinks he's not solving anything, just pushing the problem away. Thank you, Bradley Moore. Bradley Moore, who says this is so disgraceful for declaring war on the homeless people. When he posted that, he also posted pictures of tents and homeless people on the street. With that post, that post has 4 pictures of a couple of homeless people tents, I guess it's supposed to be, and homeless people on the street. One of our viewers says it's going to be messy. Thanks, Salamander Fry, by the way. And John Horner. John thinks that maybe he's doing it because the government might have intelligence suggesting a terrorist attack is imminent in D.C. Thank you, John Horner, for your support. Thank you, NVIX Media and Dennis Kennedy and Joe. Joe thinks it's inhumane to let people do drugs in the streets and other things and live in trash. We shouldn't allow it. That's what Joe says. All right, well, look, here's the thing. It is, oh, hold on a second. Let me check a couple things. Our viewer, one of our viewers sent me an article from NBC4. Charstar Wishes sent me an article from NBC4 on July 18th that said a DC police commander is under investigation for allegedly making changes to crime statistics in his district. Some of our viewers have claimed that the statistics which say that crime is down in DC the last couple of years, some of our viewers have claimed that that they're actually not down and that it's just fake statistics. Now, I have no reliable evidence that that is the case. There is a story in NBC4 Washington about a commander who was suspended and accused of changing crime statistics. I don't know how common that kind of thing is for any city in the country. And I don't know if it were happening, would it be happening any more the last 2 years than the years before it? So, again, I can't say. If there is some kind of investigation you'd probably need a pretty systematic investigation of this. Probably wouldn't be an easy thing to show. But in theory, maybe it could be shown. If there's some sort of investigation that shows that specifically the statistics from the last year or two have been adjusted down, whereas previous ones weren't, I will certainly let you know. I'm not going to hide that for you if I see that. Thanks for sending the article. If you want to look it up, the article is called, you can Google it, DC Police Commander Suspended Accused of Changing Crime Statistics. That was from NBC4 Washington on July 18th. Okay. Oh, thanks also to Redeemed Patriot. I appreciate your support, Redeemed Patriot. Thank you. All right, look. Allison Hargrove says, how can you move out when you don't have a home? Well, President Trump said they would be given places to stay. I don't know what that involves. Tyler Becker says, freedom is free, but some are more free than others. Thank you, Tyler. Okay, so look. It is 1:27 a.m. I got to get some sleep because this press conference is in 8.5 hours. And we're going to come on early. So I'm guessing there might not, probably it's more likely there are updates in the morning than right now. So I really got to, unfortunately, because I think it's a very interesting topic, I have to wrap up the stream now so we can cover it in the morning. So anyways, I'm going to be back and we're going to be covering this press conference at 10 a.m. and I will come on early for it. I'm hoping to get on at 9 a.m. That's my hope. Yes, I like to get on an hour early, but we'll see. And it could start late too, but who knows? So anyways, I hope you can join me later today. Today is Monday in the Eastern and Central time zones already. I hope you can join me Monday morning in about 7 or 8 hours or whatever it is, and you can join me for the press conference, and we'll see what President Trump announces, and if he indeed activates the National Guard and has troops go to D.C. Okay? So, let's kind of sum up here. All right. Well, I very much appreciate you guys being with me for this stream, and I hope to see you later today in the morning. And subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV. We cover all kinds of live breaking news without an agenda. Agenda Free TV. And turn on the notifications so you can find out when we go live. If there are a lot of times there's some big breaking story and I didn't know it was going to happen, and I can't tell you in advance we're going on the air, and I just jump on the air. But if you want to find out when we're going live, it's free. You sign up to the notifications once, and you get sent a notification whenever we go live. It works really well. The mods will post the link to sign up for the notifications in the chat. You can also find it in the description of this video on YouTube and Facebook. YouTube and Facebook, yes. So make sure you sign up for the notifications. Also, huge thanks. I really appreciate you guys watching, and a lot of people have been posting stuff in the chat, letting me read your comments, sending me news articles, and I appreciate you tuning in. And huge thanks to our moderators. Thank you so much. We have all kinds of views in our chat, and our moderators are the ones keeping it respectful and civil in there. Thank you so much for being here late night. Ruth Krafasi over there, Robert's May Queen on YouTube, and all of our other YouTube moderators. Huge thanks to you. And over on Facebook, Valerie Gail Griffin, Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Riley. Thank you, Facebook moderators. Twitch, DeBears, Idaho Star, Matthew Kohai 3, Sarah, and Surly Dev. Thank you very much. Linda Bell, Glary, Misha on X. Thank you to our moderators. Very much appreciated. Thanks to everybody who donated to the channel. That is so nice of you guys. Huge thanks. That is how this channel exists and can cover news full time. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. I think I thanked everybody. I'll make sure. If you ever want to donate, you go to agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. But huge thanks. Brian Beelman and everybody else I thanked earlier. Mike, you get timed out. Mike is getting, thank you, Mike, but you're getting timed out. You know why, Mike, you're getting timed out. But thank you, Mike. And also, let's see here. I will post updates on this and other stories. I don't know how much on this there'll be tonight. But on my X account, which is @Lookner, you can follow me there for breaking news coverage. @Lookner on X. Oops, that's not what it looks like. That's what it looks like right there. @Lookner on X. Follow me for breaking news. I'll post the link in the chat. Also, hey, another good way to find out when we're going live, follow Agenda Free TV on X. If you're on X, I always post there when we go live. I post updates about the channel there, Agenda Free TV, @Agenda Free TV. We also have a chat. We have a Discord chat. You can chat in the Discord with other viewers for free. A lot of our viewers like doing that. It's the same link as the link to the free notifications. Check out the Discord chat if you'd like. Big thanks to our Discord mods for all you do. Thanks, Discord mods. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, turn on the YouTube notifications. I'd suggest that. It's a little unclear how to do that, though, at first, if you don't know. So it can be a little tricky. What you got to do is you got to subscribe to the channel. And then once you're subscribed, what you want to do is make sure you click the notifications bell and choose all notifications. So subscribe, click the bell, and choose all notifications on YouTube. Also, hey, thanks so much to our Facebook subscribers for supporting the channel, like Aaron Van S. and LT and Robert Real II and Lou Knight, Margaret Riley, Kay Lowry Body, Sharon Klassen Goslin, Shannon Davis Hughes. All of our subscribers over there, thank you so much on Facebook for subscribing. Thank you. Amy Cluck, thanks for the stars again. I appreciate that. Thank you. And also on Twitch, all of our Twitch subscribers, like Wall Street and Shaggy, thanks for subscribing. I appreciate that. And Matthew Kohai 3 and DeBears and Douthis, thanks for subscribing over on Twitch. Jax Haku, thank you for subscribing. And all of our other Twitch subscribers, thank you. And also our YouTube members, James Morrow, CC James, Roger Shoemaker, Trish TX71, Chris N, Matt Morgan, Ethereal Planet, JD63, Turned Off, Adventurer, thank you, Raven Knight, Rose Garvey, CAG 813, Lisa, is it Seckler, I think it is, Jan Nissen, William Cromer, Bama Fan, Adventurer, and Bella, thank you for being a subscriber, not subscriber, YouTube member, thank you, Lola P, Adventurer, thank you. And Roger Shoemaker, Silent Hero, UV Lightning, MYOB, thank you. Thanks everybody else for watching as well. Thanks, Enoch Spector, for your support, and everybody I thanked earlier. All right, I am wrapping up this stream. So, again, a little bit shorter stream than usual, but I got to get some sleep because we're going to be back on here in not that long covering this press conference. So I hope you can join me. The press conference is at 10 Eastern. I'm going to be on before that. I'm going to try to get on at 9 Eastern, but I can't guarantee it. But sometime before 10 Eastern, I will come on the air. We will do a pre-show for the press conference, and we'll bring you live coverage of the press conference. So please join me later this morning, and we will cover it. Okay. Thank you, Sherilyn Lum Alarcon. And thanks to John Spicer for watching, and all of our other viewers. All right, I got to get some sleep. And EMT Pirate, thank you. That is it for right now. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you later this morning for the press conference. We'll see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.